Hello, I'm Felicity Green, and this is the first video in the Pranyama series. And so we are going to learn the first, or what Mr. Iyengar calls Series 1. So if you get his book, Light on Pranayama, you can read about Series 1. But I'm going to do a demonstration, which helps a lot, and I'm showing you pictures of the diaphragm and the action of the diaphragm on a demonstrated model. So Mr. Iyengar, in his genius, realized that most people taught pranayama in a traditional seated position. And in the seated position, if your intercostal muscles and you don't have an awareness of your diaphragm, what it's doing inside, you don't get a good result. So he realized that if we take it in an easier position where gravity is neutralized, the lying position, then we can get in touch with those intercostal muscles and how they move the ribs like bucket handles on the side of a bucket, and the movement of the diaphragm. So when a baby is born, it does belly breathing, and that's because not everything has developed yet, not all the muscles have developed yet. And so that's the way it breathes. It takes the diaphragm down into the pelvic area as deep as possible, and that makes the belly swell. That's why it's called belly breathing. But we are now mature people, and we don't need to do belly breathing. We need to bring the energy up into the chest cavity, because that's where we produce prana, the wonderful light that helps us to live life more fully. So what we're going to do is understand a little bit by looking at these pictures of the shape of the diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle, and it's attached to the rib cage all the way around, in the front and at the back. Okay, and it's lower at the back than it is in the front. So we, instead of taking the diaphragm all the way down to the pelvis, we're taking the diaphragm down to the bottom of the lower ribs. And then we create the intercostal action so that it lifts the ribs like these bucket handles, and we get some lateral movement. And remember, our rib cage goes all the way up to the collarbones. So eventually you will be able to feel breath moving gently underneath your flesh here, just below your collarbones. But in the beginning, it's basically the bottom intercostals that we're working with. So I'm going to be demonstrating, and I will be putting my hands on the model. You can put your hands in the same place to feel that lateral movement that is created by the intercostals to make your chest larger. And there is a video of Mr. Iyengar. It was actually in San Francisco, and he did a demonstration of inhaling and exhaling, and it was just amazing. He kept on inhaling and inhaling and inhaling, and you could feel the tension growing in this huge auditorium, and it was just amazing how long he could go on inhaling. Now, we all just have to learn to use our own capacity, particularly in the beginning. So don't strain, just try to be aware of these delicate movements inside. So you've been doing asana and working your shoulders and your knees and your hips, etc., etc. These are all large outer movements. Now we are going on with yoga, and we are moving ourselves inside to pranayama. And this is to learn to focus the mind. So Mr. Iyengar said that the mind, the breath, is the king of the mind. So on your inhaling breath, your mind gets busy. On your exhaling breath, your mind gets quiet. Now, for some of us, inhaling is easy, exhale is not so easy. For others, exhale is easy, inhale is not so easy. This tells you a little bit about your mind. If you have a very busy mind, you probably find inhaling very easy. If you find letting go easily, you relax easily, then you probably find an exhale. But we want to develop an even breath rhythm. Even, and so we have to pay attention to the one that's the most difficult. Anyway, we're going to focus today on the diaphragm and on the movement of the intercostals. And I hope you'll watch carefully. Remember, it's delicate movement. It's not great, big, huge movements. Now I will show you the setup. And for it, you need 2 blankets, not acrylic blankets. They can be cotton blankets or wool blankets. Acrylic is not a good blanket to use for any props. Okay. And you're going to open the blanket out half its length. And then for most people, you're going to fold it in 3. If you have a very small and narrow body, you divide it into 4. And you maybe only use 1 blanket. It depends how thick the blankets are. So that's 1. And you put them on the middle of your mat. And then you have to understand where your lower ribs are. So feel at the back of your body and find out where your lower ribs are first. So for women, the lower ribs are very close to the rim of the pelvis. Men have more space. So you want to lie down and put this edge here at the bottom of your rib cage. Okay? You roll these blankets in. Make sure that your neck is supported and that your forehead is higher than your chin. If that's not so, then you need to put a little extra thing under there under the back of the roll, okay? Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to do belly breathing. This is a sort of comfortable resting breath. And I'm thinking of taking my diaphragm as deeply down into the pelvis as I can. And you can see there's not much movement up here. Now I want to begin to understand how I can make these ribs move out by using the intercostals and not taking the diaphragm lower than my lower ribs. So I'm going to squeeze here a little bit so I know how to push my ribs out into the hands. Okay, so. see? Work within your own limit. Don't strain. That is important. You're just trying to get in touch, and it's not going to happen immediately. But remember, it's 10 or 15 minutes of practice. You practice every day, and slowly your body will begin to tune in to those more delicate movements inside. Namaste.